Pain. Absolute pain.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a live recap episode with myself, Zach Seko, host of Locked On Nittany Lions, and the great one himself, Adam Sheets, Penn State men's basketball insider. We're going to need a lot of inside work here, Adam, as Penn State, Penn State Twitter had a meltdown here, 59-56. That's the game. Penn State men's basketball comes up short, Adam, and here we are. So when things started to get a little fun, they beat Ohio State, and I was going to say, you know what? When they string a couple together and we get back in the live show, you and I are going to recap both games. Well, the Ohio State one doesn't matter anymore.
Nope.
It's a quad 1 win, but this is a quad 2 loss, 59-56. Feel free, anyone that's joining us live, to throw any questions in the chat, any comments you want to be seen, and get in on the conversation. We're going for about the next 20-25 minutes. Adam, it's great to see you. I wish it was better circumstances. You were at the game. I watched it in full. I'm a little, I go back and forth between, because I'm a little delayed because I stream, and so I'm seeing people's reaction like in real time, and I'm like, oh man, this is not good. This was a team, I'm like, okay, 3 points, it could get worse, and it didn't, because people's reaction online was just not good. But yeah, you saw it. Your immediate takeaways from this game.
I think it's more frustrating. Not that they lost. Rutgers is a good team. I think a lot of people coming in said, it's not unrealistic that Penn State will lose, but it's the way they lost. They were up 42-23 early in the second half in this game, and they played great in the first half. Tailed off towards the end of the first half, and it's like, okay, Rutgers made a run, cut it to 10, but Penn State controlled it, so if they could just get out going in the second half, they might be able to put this thing away. And then they did, got up 19, but then the wheels completely fell off on this team. Seth Lundy played the worst game maybe he's ever played in a Penn State uniform. He couldn't hit anything. Coach Shrewsbury said after the game that he put a lot of pressure on himself. He was real amped up for this game, and he just couldn't get it going. So frustrating for Seth Lundy. And then I think the biggest takeaway to take in this game is Jalen Pickett did not attempt a shot in the second half of this game. And that can't happen. You have a guy who's going to be an All-American, all Big Ten caliber player. When the game's on the line, especially when the wheels are falling off, you got to find a way to get him going. And he did not even attempt a shot in the second half.
Bigger than that, Penn State did not make a field goal in the final 9 minutes and 16 seconds. Jalen Pickett held scoreless in the second half. That is a testament to Rutgers' defense. And I mean, that's supposed to be your people at Penn State, myself included in this circle, say that Jalen Pickett needs to be outside of the Big Ten, all Big Ten conversation, and be elevated into the All-America conversation. That is not an All-America performance. Who is the most responsible for Penn State's loss against Rutgers?
I think this blame goes to a lot of different people, and I think it goes to the entire team. They did not close a game that they should have closed. I think they're all going to put it on themselves. But Micah Shrewsbury took a lot of the blame on himself in the post-game press conference. He said he got out-coached by Steve Pikiell. He didn't put his team in the best way. He didn't handle the situations. And I kind of agree with him to an extent. I like Mike. I think he's done a lot of great things this season. But in this game, they did not find a way to put Jalen Pickett in successful situations. They put him in positions on the wing with ball screens where it was easy for Rutgers to double, get it out of his hands, and no one was making shots for this Penn State team. Like Mikey Henn hit 2 threes. Cam Winter had it going from behind the arc in the first half, but no one was really hitting shots. So Rutgers was able to double, get it out of his hands, and not sacrificing giving up those threes to other players. So I think, just Rutgers' ability, to trap, Penn State not being able to get Jalen Pickett in good positions, and then obviously Penn State not being able to hit shots is probably what you have to blame. And most of that obviously is going to go back onto coaching at the end of the day.
I mean, shooting's atrocious. This is supposed to be the team that is almost unbeatable at home. I know they lost 2 to this point, but they were up by 19 on Rutgers. And I feel like almost no lead is safe in basketball, especially in college. So even though Penn State's up by 19, Coach Peichel wisely takes a timeout early in the second half, and that changed the rhythm of just about everything there. Seth Lundy and everyone's bringing up Seth Lundy and the fact that he kept shooting. I don't blame him because he is statistically over the course of the season the best shooter on the team alongside Andrew Funk, and you can have a bad night. So you don't just stop when you were one of the main scorers on the team. So I agree with the sentiment that he should have kept trying. But Andrew Funk and Seth Lundy together were 1 of 18. So I don't think that Seth Lundy is the only culprit here. Andrew Funk is truly your 3-point scorer. Seth Lundy just happens to be able to do it. I mean, Jalen Pickett can do it too. But Seth Lundy in this case is an all-around scorer. He's a mid-range. He's a guy who can drive. He's a guy who can dunk. Whereas Andrew Funk's game is you got to find him in rhythm outside the arc.
Yeah, that's his game, and he couldn't find a rhythm at all, which is surprising for him because he had been really good at home. As you said, Penn State's a completely different team when they're playing inside the Bryce Jordan Center. Andrew Funk's been a big reason why, because he shot the ball so well at home, and that just was not there for him today. He had a couple that didn't even hit the rim. He just was not able to get in any sort of rhythm offensively, and it's the same with Seth Lundy. And Penn State, it's going to be hard when, your 2 other scorers in Seth Lundy and Andrew Funk, who can really stretch the floor and put a lot of pressure on defenses, aren't shooting the ball well. That allows Rutgers to feel comfortable and do a lot of different things defensively to take Jalen Pickett out of the game. And I think that was really the key, as you said. If Penn State's not going to shoot the ball well, especially those 2 who are your 2 reliable shooters, that's going to be a recipe for disaster for Coach Shrewsbury. And that's what happened in the second half.
We're going to take a break. We'll keep this conversation going. We're recapping Penn State men's basketball versus Rutgers. But first, a word from our sponsor today, and that is Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all of the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is still to eat a little healthier this year. But if you're like me, where you want to eat healthier, but you don't want to compromise all the taste, then man, I've got the thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious. You won't think they're just good for you. It's perfect for your New Year's resolution that's still going on. It's making its way into the 3rd month. But what makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That is right. Real chocolate, and they come in unbelievably tasty flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box anymore. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And if you're close to a Sam's Club, run right in, grab a 13-bar box with hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. And thanks again for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. Make sure you check out Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, you get to hear from big-name experts, insiders, players, and coaches. That is Locked On College Basketball. Available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. We're live on YouTube currently. If you want to contribute your thoughts in the comments section, we welcome questions, comments, angry feedback. Of course, keep it clean, keep it PG, but totally understand the emotion here. I wasn't really enthused about doing the show, Adam, but here we are. I like our conversations, but I wish it would have been 3 in a row. All right. So the next question is, can Penn State still make the NCAA tournament outside of winning the Big Ten tournament? We know that the automatic qualifier is still in play, and that's God's work. That's the Lord's work at that point, because Penn State won't do that on its own. But if they beat Northwestern and they beat Maryland, those are 2 quad 1 wins. This was a quad 2 loss tonight. Now, it's a loss, don't get me wrong, but this wasn't a missed quad 1 opportunity. So, and I've heard that they don't even necessarily need to go 5-0 down the stretch. 4-1 and a good Big Ten tournament performance still helps them get into the NCAA tournament. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think, there's still a chance. I think a lot of people obviously in the moment are like, this was the game that if they win, that puts them in because you feel really good about it. And that just wasn't there for this team today. And they lose. And now everyone obviously goes the other way. Now they have no shot. I think now Penn State might have lost the ability to control their own destiny. I think that kind of was taken away from them because now they're going to need some help. They got some help in the Big Ten recently. They did not get some help nationally. North Carolina, who was behind them in the bubble going into Saturday, beat Virginia. So that's going to vault them over Penn State. So, they didn't get a lot of help. Some of the bubble teams that were behind them were getting big wins. Penn State obviously losing to Rutgers. But, there's obviously the opportunity that if they win these next 2, maybe some losses across the country, and then you get 2 or maybe 3 wins in Chicago in the Big Ten tournament, you're right where you want to be on the bubble in those conversations and just hope that your resume outbeats some of the teams you're going up against.
Adam, it's funny how that works because I remember having conversations this past week about North Carolina and how they don't have the resume. That feature article on ESPN came out about them with the bracketology because they were 0-9 against quad 1 team or quad 1 games anyway. And then they go out and they beat Notre Dame on the road and then they beat Virginia. So it's funny. It's just funny how that works, right? You let them slide and then they finally show up in the public eye and then North Carolina finds a way to turn around. Kind of the same way Penn State, okay, Minnesota, not really, but I gave them a 50-50 chance with a lean towards Ohio State just because that's a quad 1 game. And they went on the road against a team that is still, according to the analytics, a team that Ohio State is still respectable. And look what happened just recently. They beat Illinois. So it's not like, things come and go here. Northwestern, I thought Northwestern was going to be the toughest opponent remaining in this 5-game stretch, and they're just getting beat down left and right. Blowing a lead against Illinois. They lost to Maryland 75-59. Like, that's not a top 25 team, and a vulnerable team if Penn State can go in there, but it's on the road. So I still think if they beat Northwestern, that's their toughest game just because it's a road game. And at least at this point in time, Northwestern's top 25. I think Maryland will slide into the top 25 when the new rankings come out just because of the way they beat the Wildcats here. So if they can hypothetically get 2 wins, a team that's in the top 30, for if you're extending it for Northwestern, and then a team that Maryland will definitely be in the top 25. You win both those games. Okay. The conversation's still alive. Now you just can't fizzle out in the Big Ten tournament. You have to win at least, would we say 2 or 3 games in this instance?
I think it depends where they are. I think it's 3 if they have to play on Wednesday, 2 if they play on Thursday. Right now, they're playing on Wednesday, which isn't good. They're the 12 seed in the Big Ten right now, and they'd have to play Ohio State again, which, that's not going to be an easy matchup on a Wednesday. Ohio State team that, as you said, just beat Illinois today, and it was a really close game in Columbus, so who knows what could happen in Chicago in a game situation where all the pressure's on Penn State and Ohio State really just playing to get ready for next season, playing with house money at that point, just going out and competing. So it could be a very interesting outcome there when those teams meet up, kind of like last year when they met in the Big Ten tournament, if that matchup sticks, where Penn State was kind of just playing for next season and then they were able to upset Ohio State as they were going on to the NCAA tournament. So I think it's 3 if they have to play on Wednesday, which is really hard in the Big Ten because that double bye is so important. I think 2 wins if you get that single bye, upsetting a team that would be in the top 4 in the Big Ten would be huge and really boost that resume.
That's what needs, and that's on a neutral site. So again, when it becomes it, you want to look for those quad 1 wins. Those are very important, and it needs to be top 50 on a neutral site in order to get that quad 1 victory. But still, any victory is good at this down the stretch, and Penn State's going to be tested here. I mean, they are right on the bubble. They're fringe because some of the other teams in the conversation that they're kind of battling it out for that final spot, West Virginia, Texas Tech. I mean, the Big 12 has been really good this year, but just some of those are the other teams. And I look at West Virginia, for example, at 16-13, and I'm like, you put them ahead of a Penn State, hypothetically. Penn State has the better overall record, but I guess when you really look at the schedules, the Mountaineers do have a couple more impressive victories, just given strength of schedule.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the big thing with strength of schedule, because I was talking earlier today, Penn State had opportunities to get some wins that they didn't. I think you looked at Clemson game early in the ACC Big Ten Challenge would have been a huge win. Virginia Tech and the Charleston Classic, that could have got you to the championship against Charleston. That would have been a huge win for the Nittany Lions. You have the Michigan State game early in the year. There were a lot of games where you look at and you're like, man, Penn State had an opportunity to get a big resume boosting win, and it just slipped out of their fingers and they just weren't able to hold on. Those were three really close games that Penn State didn't close out in the non-conference early in the year. Michigan State, obviously a conference game, but in early December, that if you win those games, we might be having a very different conversation right now after this loss.
Miles Dredd, 0 points in this game, 21 minutes. This is, again, I'm just kind of answering the people's concerns. I want this to be the people's show about Penn State sports. We can talk about all the analytics and hypotheticals and stuff, but people were saying, well, why is Miles Dredd out on the floor late in the game? He hasn't really done anything. And his game is shooting, and he didn't have his first shot attempt until the final play of the game. And I think that's because Rutgers defended Penn State's first three options. And then somehow Miles Dredd, I mean, that was a pass that was almost out of bounds. Jalen Pickett saved it to begin with. So that, I thought that's how they were going to lose. The fact that they even got a shot off, the fact that Seth Lundy even almost attempted one final one. But Miles Dredd is kind of, here we go again. Should he have even been on the floor? As much as he was in this game, playing over 20 minutes, and he's a 3-point shooter, but he only attempted one, and it was just kind of a Hail Mary. It really wasn't even a good shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did really well defensively tonight. I thought he played good defense, but now we're talking the last possession. Penn State had the ball on offense down 3, and I didn't think of it in the moment, but kind of, hindsight's 2020. I was thinking, in the second half, the only guy who really hit threes for him was Michael Henn. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe you give Michael Henn a shot in that situation, just a guy who's been there, knocked down shots, was really the only guy with any semblance of confidence there going down the stretch, that if the ball does rotate around, maybe Michael Henn gets that look instead of a Miles Dredd, who, as you said, he played 21 minutes. That was his first shot attempt, so you don't know how warmed up you are at that point, just not seeing it when your first shot attempt comes with 13 seconds left in the game and the ball swung back around. He wasn't even drawn up for him. They run the play. They ran against Clemson to get Andrew Funk a 3, and it was a bad pass that just the play ended up breaking down. But, that's kind of the thing you could look at now. Obviously, it's easier to say now, but I think maybe Michael Henn in there would have gave them a different look, and a guy who was confident and had knockdown shots in that game, in that half.
Yeah, and on top of that, I thought that Penn State's game plan, of course, when they were almost leading by 20, it seemed almost foolproof there. And I don't know what adjustments were or were not made, because they had Rutgers numbers. They had key guys in foul trouble, obviously, as Rutgers struggled with one of their better defenders being in foul trouble early on. And Cam Winter is proving that he is more of an integral part of this offense. Just these past few shows, what we've been saying for probably the past 2 months on other select episodes, is that Penn State only has Jalen Pickett, Seth Lundy, and Andrew Funk to turn to. And now Cam Winter down the stretch, when we were saying, oh, it might be Kanye Clary, he's emerging. No, it's Cam Winter who gave you that. And I thought that was going to open up more Andrew Funk and Seth Lundy opportunities. And it didn't, oddly enough. And I think that just has to do a lot with just poor shooting and was this game about nerves? I feel like Penn State just couldn't believe that they were up by 20, or close to it anyway. It was 19, but they were up by almost 20 points. They were dominating a team that they were a 3-point favorite in this game. So if you put them on a neutral site, Rutgers, according to Vegas, would be a favorite in that game. So Penn State, even at home, they still believe that Rutgers is the winning team. Just Penn State has home court advantage in this case. So did it just come down to nerves at the end of the day? Like, they couldn't believe that they were up by that much and that they were winning the way they were.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that came into this. I was talking to some people after the game as well, and I kind of said, I think it kind of felt like Penn State got up 19 in the second half, saw
Too
Rutgers
quickly.
knew Rutgers was going to make a run. It was very early. And it was just Penn State trying to hold on for dear life there at the end. I think a lot of those players knowing the importance of the game going in. Obviously, the coaches say we don't want to read, the newspaper clippings and know this is a big game for your bubble opportunity to get you in the NCAA tournament. And there was some added pressure going into the game and just trying to hold on for dear life, just the way the game was playing out. I think that definitely played a role in how this game ended up and Rutgers able to get the win. It also helps that Rutgers is a team that's used to winning these close games. They've done that the last few years. Steve Pikiell's built a really good program. They're in a lot of close games and they find ways to win. And they were able to play the game at their pace, a little slower half-court game, and they were able to score. Penn State, they're a team that wanted to run in this game. That's what they did early in the first half when they made their first run. They were getting up and down, getting quick shots. They didn't do that late. I think it might have been just trying to hold on, slow the game down, use the entire shot clock, shorten the game. But that allowed playing right into Rutgers' hand defensively and then allowing them to set up their offense and be successful on their end as well.
59-56, the final. Penn State 17-12 overall, 8-10 in conference. Cam Winter, the leading scorer, 16 points. Jalen Pickett behind him with 11, just kind of the poorest game after he was named National Player of the Week. It's crazy how these things just go up, and what goes up must come down, right? And Seth Lundy with probably the most abysmal performance of his Penn State career with 7 points, but most importantly, 1 of 16 from the field and 0 of 11 from three-point land. So final segment. I am Zach Sako of Locked On Nittany Lions, your host as always. Adam Sheets, special guest, joining me with Penn State men's basketball. Adam, let's get this one in a little earlier. Where can people find your work as we wrap this one up?
At Sheets Adam on Twitter, where you can find everything for all your Penn State basketball needs.
All right. And Penn State has a very important game against Northwestern and one against Maryland later on March 1st and March 5th. What a way to start your March off. So that one is out in Northwestern. Let's go to ESPN and see what this one would be projected at. Northwestern, I don't think would rank inside the top 25. I think basically they'll switch positions with Maryland after the result, 75-59. Wildcats, 20-9 overall, 11-7 in conference, and according to ESPN, Northwestern wins this one 71% of the time. I believe that. I think that's right in the ballpark, and Northwestern's been such a better team. They're good defensively. They only allow 62 points per game. And the offense is good. It's good enough. Boo Buie gets his leading player for them. And as we all know, one of the Penn State legends is on that team coaching. That is Taylor Battle. So in order to make Maryland of any interest, Penn State's got to beat Northwestern. So can they do it?
I think they can. I think this is an interesting matchup because Northwestern's played really well, but they're not that team that just overwhelms you with talent like some of the teams in the Big Ten, like Purdue, like in Indiana, where the talent's just all over and any guy can get you. Northwestern is a team that heavily relies on Boo Buie and Chase Audige to be their two guys in the backcourt to really carry the load offensively. And then they have some great role players around them that can do a lot of good things. They're really good at home. In their last 3 home games, they beat Purdue, Indiana, and Iowa, which are huge. 2-3 huge wins, really booked their ticket to the NCAA tournament, and they're playing for seeding. They're probably going to be a top 7 seed in the NCAA tournament, barring a really slow finish to the year. So I think Northwestern's got to come in this game confident, even after 2 losses on the road to Illinois and Maryland. Illinois game, I think they believe they probably should have won.
They were up by a bunch.
Threw it away in the second half, just weren't able to do it, up 18 at halftime. And then Maryland was a game that was really close in the first half, and then Maryland just slowly pulled away. And Maryland's a really good team at home, finished the year undefeated at home, 10-0 in conference play at home for the Terrapins. So, I mean, it's definitely, a tough game for Penn State going in. They're going to have opportunities. I think they can win this game, but they got to play well. They got to fix the issues they had in this Rutgers game. It's a very different team, a very physical Northwestern team. They play very physically inside with the way they defend the post and a lot of interesting things. They're going to hit Jalen Pickett very hard, probably a lot of double teams. So it's going to be on these shooters to be ready to make shots. And if they do, I think they can give Coach Collins and this Wildcats team fits and potentially walk out of Evanston with a win, but it's not going to be easy.
Everything you told me makes me feel even worse about the game against Northwestern, just because those are the teams that Penn State struggles with. They can match up better because Penn State's a finesse team this year. They're not a physical team. So unless they shoot 60% from 3-point range like they did against Illinois on the road, that is the only formula. And I don't see that happening as often as you think, and especially since Northwestern's just a better defensive team. They're a very good rebounding team. They average 8 steals a game. They don't shoot well, but because Penn State's defensive efficiency is one of the worst in the country. Again, it is the worst in the Big Ten for sure. Going up against a Northwestern team that's just a little lackluster on offense, their name of the game is defense. I just don't see Penn State's recipe. And also on top of that, because we're still at the college level, at the pros, this is a little different. Players are more mentally tough. I think this loss to Rutgers at home is going to stick with them through the Northwestern game. And I think it's going to haunt them, and Northwestern shouldn't have any issues beating Penn State. I hate to say it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but, you said it. I mean, these players are going to get on Twitter, I'm assuming. I mean, they're going to see the thing people are saying about it. I mean, we'd advise them, don't get on Twitter if you're them. It's not pretty on there right now. A lot of people very upset. But, I mean, this is a team that's going to have to regroup. They're a veteran team. They're the oldest team in Ken Palm. We've seen them do this where they bounce back after a tough loss. Now, they haven't had a loss like this where it was theirs and they were going to book their ticket to the NCAA tournament, and it just fell right away from them at the end. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond, how Coach Shrewsbury's able to lead this team heading into their 2 days of practice before they travel to Northwestern. It's going to be interesting. I think Northwestern's got to feel confident with Penn State coming in, and they got to be ready to go. But because they're looking to get back on track, as we said, they've lost 2 straight. But, Penn State's going to have to regroup and just find a way to get back on track and maybe get a win at Northwestern, but it is not going to be easy.
This will show how mentally tough they are and how well Micah Shrewsbury can get through to his group, because we saw them respond, at least over the past 2 games, Minnesota and Ohio State, Illinois, just stringing those wins together and coming off of that losing streak. So the fact that they were able to garner this much attention, I think, Adam, real quickly, I want to finish on that note, is the fact that so many people got back invested in Penn State men's basketball. This wasn't a team that was kind of the afterthought. It's like, oh, well, we know that they show up in the Bryce Jordan Center, but this was a team that was actually drawing interest. They were entertaining more so for the first time since not only the COVID season, but 2018. It started to kind of have that feeling again, looking at the Bryce Jordan Arena and seeing everybody around. But at the end of the day, and then that's why so many people are coming down hard. I saw there were 250 plus comments on Penn State men's basketball, the official account on Twitter, and just people saying, how dare you lose? And it's like this poor, the poor people that run social media for the team. But at the end of the day, I find that very interesting, is that everyone's hopes were let down in this given moment, but it's not over. And I hope they kind of use that as motivation to shock the world, shock the fan base, because I don't think Penn State fans are giving them, and including myself, are going to give them a chance against Northwestern. And until they hypothetically beat Northwestern, Maryland's not even, that game's not even in the conversation here.
Yeah, I think you made good points there. I think Penn State's got to embrace, if you're Coach Shrewsbury and you're this locker room, it's us versus the world. Everyone in this locker room together as one versus everyone. Kind of close it in, be the 15 guys in that room ready to go, ready to compete together. And if they do that, I think they'll re-garner that fan support. I actually thought going into this game it'd be very similar to the 2018 game against Ohio State when they were coming home. Yeah. Penn State was on a win streak. They were feeling really good, and they just routed Ohio State at home in that game. I thought that's where this game was going to go because the crowd was awesome. They had a great turnout for this game, but just on a Sunday, as we said, they just weren't able to close it out for the Nittany Lions. So they got to really embrace that, come together as one, kind of us versus the world mentality. And as you said, they're going to have to try to shock the world, and it starts on Wednesday with maybe an upset win over Northwestern.
This is Locked On Nittany Lions. Before we go, thanks again for making us your first listen and watch every single day. Make sure you check out Locked On College Basketball as March Madness gets ready to ramp up. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, you get to hear from big-name experts, insiders, players, and coaches. That is Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions if you haven't already. Thanks again for joining us for another live show. Adam, it's always great to talk to you. Appreciate your time, and hopefully when we recap Northwestern and Penn State and ultimately Penn State and Maryland, those are better conversations that we can have. Thanks again, as always.
Yep. Thanks, Zach. Always a pleasure.